Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Hello everyone, welcome to the second Startup Grind Belgrade. Thank you very much for coming. This time we will host the Deputy Ambassador of Israel, Itay Milner, and I'll use this opportunity to thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
We can start with the simple question. Can you tell us something about yourself?
Well, I'm the deputy ambassador. It sounds like a bombastic title, but the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs is pretty small. So it's kind of it's a young professional position in our ministry. I'm 34. And I'm actually a lawyer. I studied law and I started working as a lawyer, and it was a real estate lawyer, a bit also technology because it was a private law firm. But at very early stage I realized that if I'm gonna do contracts of purchasing apartment, I will go crazy by the time I get 40. So I decided to do what I really wanted to do, and then I had to think what it is. I knew that I was always interested in international affairs and politics. So I went to work for the media. And after a while, I got into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I felt like it was a good opportunity for me, and I left whatever I did until that time. And I went for the ministry, and I'm not regretting it, especially when I was sent to Serbia, which I think is awesome.
That's nice. Can you explain us a little bit about your current job? So what is the role, what's your role as a deputy ambassador here?
Well, like I said, it's a small ministry and a small embassy. So basically, it's only 4 diplomats in the embassy, and only 2 of them, the ambassador and I, are actually doing political issues and economic issues and culture. So basically, we are dividing between each other. And I always say that I'm doing whatever he doesn't want to do. He's the ambassador, so I'm doing all the backstage, and a lot of the things that I deal with is economic issue. Since we in Israel, we see Serbia as a great opportunity, and political wise, we don't have a lot of issues with Serbia. It's you're in the Balkans, we're in the Middle East. Fortunately enough, we are not in the Balkan problems, and you are not in the Middle East problems.
Yeah, that's very fortunate.
So, yeah. So political wise, it's important for us to maintain good relations with the policymakers, and we do that. But other than that, we don't have to invest that many effort in analyzing the issues here. Unlike the Western Europeans that are on the pulse all the time regarding the criteria for the EU, we don't have that. So we focus more in culture, and that means bringing a lot of groups, music, artists. We do a lot of that. Public opinion for us as Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's a very important thing. Unlike any other country, the public opinion in other countries is very relevant for us, and we are investing a lot of that. And the third thing, the fourth actually, it's the economy, and it all goes hand in hand. If I invest in economy, I also investing in public opinion. Things like I'm doing right now is also a public opinion thing, but it's also a economy issue because I'm also promoting our economy. So it all goes hand in hand.
Great. Well, because this is Startup Grind, I would like you to introduce us to Israel from the entrepreneurial perspective.
Yeah. Well, Israel is known to be the startup nation. I don't know if you heard about this book. It's the translation is bad. It's supposed to be startup nation. When it was translated in 2011, I think startup wasn't such a common word in Serbia. So
Yeah.
they thought that they need to translate it. But we are the startup nation, and there are a few reasons why we are called that way. First of all, because Israel is a startup. It's a new country that came out of yes, we have history from 2,000 years before in this place, but as a modern state, it came out of nothing, and we came to a deserted place in the Middle East. Couple of crazy people that you can say that they were entrepreneurs. They were the first Zionists, and they invested, you can say, venture capital that the other communities in Eastern Europe invested in them. Fortunately enough, it worked. We are thinking now to exit. It's worked pretty well, and I think that's made the Israeli characteristic already very open to entrepreneurship, and the fact that if you look at the society today in Israel, it's very diverse. It's scattered Jews from 120 different countries with different culture, with different language, with different looks. So this openness, this diversity, is also something that is very fruitful for entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And another thing is that we were pretty much, if you look at the 50s, 60s, it was the end of the world for Western countries. It wasn't a Western country, it was a developing country. But it was a developing country with an aspiration to being a developed country. And being so far from everything, not just geographically we're not that far, but economically, we had, I wouldn't say sanction, but there was embargo because the Arab countries did not accept us, so they did the Arab boycott, which means that every Western country that traded with Israel was boycotted in all the Arab world. So we had to figure out how to develop our own economy, and you had to be entrepreneur. So I think those things contribute to the fact that Israel today is dealing in entrepreneurship. In fact, the most common conversation today between young Israelis is maybe we can do that app, or maybe we can open that business, or maybe we can do that and that. So I think it's in our system.
It's in your blood.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Tel Aviv is presented like through the media and everywhere as one of the most innovative cities in the world. Some people will also call it the startup capital. Can you explain us why is all that?
Yeah. Tel Aviv is not a big city. If you look at the population, I mean, the vast Tel Aviv, which is also another 5 or 6 other municipalities, is around 2 million. But Tel Aviv itself is it's less than 500,000. And yet, you have on this area 1,000 startups, which means there is one startup for 450 people. It is more than everywhere in the world. It's the per capita, it's the highest in the world. Israel in total has, I think, 3,000 startups, which is also pretty high for a population of 8 million. Other than that, I think Tel Aviv has a whole ecosystem from the academy, and even before the academy, from young school, elementary even, to very prestigious research centers. You've got major venture capital funds. international ones and local ones. You've got a lot of incubators, hubs, accelerators, and you got a lot of already experienced people that can boost the system. People who already made a few startups already did exits, so it's very natural for them to be protege of other young startups. So if you take all of them together, you can say that it's a whole ecosystem. Besides that, I think that Tel Aviv also is an attractive place for startups. Even people from other countries, the fact that it's almost 250 sunny days a year, with a wonderful sunny sandy beach, with good-looking people, good food. I mean, we've got everything that Belgrade has beside the beach. That's the only thing that you need to. So it's an attractive place, and young people like to live in places like that. And you need the young crowd. One of the things that was very beneficial at the beginning, and this is something that we lost, was the cost of living in Tel Aviv. That was cheap. Today it's one of the most expensive cities in the world, and one of the reasons why it's so expensive, it's because the booming technological ecosystem. So it's kind of the reason and also the cause for the decay. So the city is trying to subsidize it. They have special areas for startups. A lot of those young companies, they don't need to pay rent. They have open spaces that they can work. The municipality is also taking care of the infrastructure. Internet is basically free in Tel Aviv for most people. You can get Wi-Fi everywhere. So the municipality, it's a decision that they made in an early stage, and they're keeping their decision. It's important for them.
Cool. Can you tell me, you've mentioned it a little bit earlier, all the complications that Israel faced in the past. I would say that Israel, in the recent history, had a lot of complications and wars. Similarly, did Serbia. But yet again, Israel is one of the most innovative countries in the world. Serbia isn't. So what's your secret? Can you
I wouldn't say war is the secret, but you are right saying that the fact that we had sort of barricades that we had to go through them contribute to the fact that Israel is innovative today. The fact that the start of the technological leap that Israel had was through the military industry. Like I said before, the embargo that we had and the fact that we were under threat all the time, we had to develop our own military industry, and that a lot of the resources in the early stages of Israel was invested in that. A lot of engineers, and I think when Israel opened up to the world, and in fact we didn't need that many engineers in those fields. All of a sudden, a lot of those skilled people went to the market, and they had to develop their own private initiatives, civil initiatives. So yes, you can say that the situation contributed to that. Another thing that I think the situation contribute is the fact that mandatory service in Israel, military service is mandatory for men and women. For men 3 years, and for women 2 years. And when you take young men and young women to serve in the military when they're 18, and when they're 19, they already have to command a group of 18 years old. You develop sort of a leadership that later on in life you can use in entrepreneurship. Yeah. So I think that contributes to that characteristic. And another thing is the fact that the military itself has its technological units. One of the most famous one is the it's an intelligence unit called 8200, which is the equivalent to the NSA, the Israeli equivalent to the NSA, but it's under the army. And they are in charge of technological intelligence to tap phones, computers, to hack, and those young geniuses, you know, they're being tracked when they're in high school. You're being, you know, all of a sudden you get a letter. At least in my time, it was a letter that the army is want you to come for an interview. 16-year-old, you know, how do they know about him? They know because he has already did his exam in physics or in math, and you know they are. And you already, when you're 16, you're doing also exams in the military already before you are drafted. So those very young, bright men and women, they're already going to those units and they learn a lot. They are giving the tools to really develop their own ideas and their own hack skills. So when they go out to the market, they're 21 and they already have experience. And other than that, they already those units already have like alumni agencies. One of the biggest VC funds in Israel, it's called A200 because it's from A200 alumni. So apparently, when you're 18 and you're going to one of those units, it's kind of a ticket that you're gonna succeed in your life if you proceed in this path.
So you would say that the military plays an important role in the startup ecosystem?
I think it does. I mean, it's one of the things. I mean, you have the government involvement. It's one thing. You have the military. You have the characteristic of Israelis that, like I said, they came from so many different places, so they have different characteristics. You have one of the main things. You know, Israeli high tech started to boom in the early 90s, and one of the reasons that it happened at that point is because we had a large immigration of 1 million Russian Jews, not Russians, former Soviet Union. After the dissolve of the former Soviet Union, a lot of them immigrated to Israel. Most of them immigrated to Israel, and that was, if you could say, a premium immigration. People who are doctors, engineers, scientists, and they came to Israel. A lot of them, you know, they weren't spoiled. A lot of them were working in cleaning houses and taxi drivers, but on their spare time, the government knew that you know, you have to do something with this asset. So they opened the first incubators at the early 90s just to give those people another opportunity to do something with their skills, and they were giving grants. So a lot of those scientists and those engineers, they contribute a lot to the miracle that we had in the 90s.
That's amazing. Can you just name some of the most well-known Israeli startups or companies that are already established?
Yeah, I think this is a little bit tricky because I think the expertise of Israeli high tech is not forming big companies. We're very bad in big organizations. I mean, Israelis, everybody thinks that they are the boss. So it could work wonderfully in small startups. That's why we are the startup capital. But it works terribly when it becomes too big.
Yeah,
we're very unorganized. And I think that it's they realized that it's better for them to eventually sell the company to to Microsoft, to Google, to those companies than to grow. Nevertheless, there is big companies. There is around 20 companies or 30 that are worth more than $1 billion, unicorns.
Yeah.
We have Checkpoint. I don't know if you heard of them.
Yeah.
It's a cyber company. There is WeWork. It depends how you look at the companies. If they are Israeli companies because the founder is Israeli and they are based in Silicon Valley and 90% of the employees are Americans, or if they are still in Israel today. So if you look at the Israeli founders, there's a lot of them. Like I said, WeWork, House, double Z, Converse, Rad Binat, Rad. I don't remember all of them.
Maybe. Waze?
Waze, yeah. Waze. I don't remember all of them, but like I said, the expertise is to reach a certain point when you either sell it or you're going for the stock market and you IPO and it becomes less Israeli.
Like
because and it's also a small market. You cannot have a big company in a very small market. It's much more easier for an American company when they have the market of 350 million people to establish the whole chain that you need in a successful company, from research and development to marketing to sales. We are experts in research and development. That's what we do. And after that phase, just assimilate to another company.
Yeah. So
and another issue about that, a lot of those big companies that buy those Israeli companies, they stay in Israel. You have research and development centers of Google, of Apple, of Intel, of HP, everyone.
All the big
companies, they have research and development center in Israel. Unlike Ireland, for example, which is also very developed in high tech, there you don't have the research and development. You have service, you have sales, you have marketing, but in Israel you have the research and development, the core activity of the company. They didn't come and open the research and development. They bought another company, and that became, after they took the main activity, it became a research and development center.
Sounds good. You mentioned the government also as a key player in the ecosystem. So how does the government support the entrepreneurs and startups?
I think that is more something that was relevant at the beginning. In the end of the 80s or the second half of the 80s, we'll start from the beginning. From 48 to 74, Israel was a very centralized country. It wasn't socialism, but it was very close to it. Most of the companies were state-owned. There weren't any technology companies if they weren't state-owned. And it worked. It worked pretty well. And then from the mid-70s until the mid-80s, there was a terrible depression in Israel, and something had to be changed. And then the Israeli economy became very liberalized. And part of this process, the government realized that it needed to encourage the IT sector, the technological sector. And they established few reforms and few laws and legislation that allow companies to have tax exemptions, for one thing. Another thing is that, like I said, those incubators that they establish, the fact that entrepreneurs can get grants from the state for their research, but not only for their research, but also for their development. And the most important thing, I think, is the fact that the government formed the first VC, the first venture fund. This program was, it's called Yozma. It means that the government will back private investors in their risk, but they won't share the profit with them. If you are investor, and you want to invest in a company, and it's it's a venture fund. It's called like that because it's risky. You have, let's say, $1 million and you want to invest that. You will hesitate to do it if there's no established relations of trust between young companies and investment funds. So what the government did, they said, okay, you will put $1 million, we will put $1 million. If we lose, both of us lose. But if you win, if you profit, you are the only profiteer. So that's brought a lot of money into the market. And that was the first big VC. And then later on, they duplicated to more and more of those. But today, all of it is private. All of it is private, and most of it is actually international. The government involvement today in the market is minimalized. It's more into academy, to putting investments in education and research centers, and also at some level in tax exemptions for research and development. The research and development sector in Israel, it's 4.8% from our GDP, which is actually the highest in the world. But 80% of it is private.
How much venture capital is available in Israel? I guess it's probably a lot.
How much is the market value?
No, well, that's also a good question.
You mean how much money is invested?
Yeah, how much venture capital is available?
Last time that I checked, it was, I think, 20 billion.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not sure about the numbers. I have Daniela, my assistant, here. No, the value of venture capital investments in Israel. I will have to get back to you about that. Yeah. In exits, yeah, in exit it was 15 billion.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
It's a nice record.
Actually, 15 billion was in 2014, and 2015 was 11 billion. But the average in the last 10 years is about $10 billion a year of exits.
That's amazing. So, can you tell me? Well, you already mentioned that the guys in Israel are experts at building small organizations and then selling them. And also research and development is the strength. So those are probably the things that entrepreneurs in Israel are the best at. Is there anything else that you would mention?
I would say that I think the market started out of a lot of ICT and communication. I don't know why. I don't know why it became an expertise, but it was. All of the biggest companies in Israel at the beginning, at the end of the 90s, early 2000s, were communication companies. But today we see that the market is shifting, and a lot of the Israeli startups are actually in mobile, which is similar, but it's different, and a lot of cyber security, and you can understand why.
Yeah.
So it's an expertise of Israel, but also in a lot of other issues. How would you identify WeWork? You know this WeWork? Mm-hmm. WeWork is a company that do something similar to this place. It's a share of space of
like a co-working space.
Co-working space. Today it's worth $15 billion.
Oh.
It's only started, I think, 6 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, it's I don't think it's an Israeli achievement. I think it's this industry is going crazy, and the company can reach. It was worth 6 billion last year, and now it's 15. So things are going very fast.
Yeah, everything's growing. Yeah. So you mentioned the education system several times, but what's the most direct way that it impacts entrepreneurship?
I think that the education system in Israel, unlike other education system, it's very emphasize the individual.
It's customized.
Yeah, it's not customized, but from a very early age, you are being taught not to be taught. To kind of do your own thing, your own project. It's very targeting this kind of education, and also the fact that we have a technological institution, and almost every high school have a sort of research and development class. You know, 1 class out of 10 is research and development, and those teenagers are already developing their own projects. So it comes in an early age, and also the academia is also I wouldn't say have more how do you say, like more programs for technology, but you can see that most of the students in Israel, they don't go to study linguistic or psychological studies or things like that, or political science. They don't do that anymore. They used to study a lot of those programs, but today most of the students are going to technological studies, to engineering studies, to math, to physics, and they do it because they know that this is how they will find a job.
Yeah. I would like to ask you about partnerships between Serbia and Israel. Are there any partnerships that are about technology development and entrepreneurship?
Well, we are working very hard to make it happen. Today we have a few programs that we do have. First of all, there is a scholarship of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that everyone can apply. It's from master and up. So that's one thing. Another thing is that we have our own embassy activities, like Start TLV. I don't know if you heard about it, but we have a yearly competition that it's sort of a pitching competition, that the winner in this pitching competition gets to travel to Israel and to pitch to VC funds and to participate in the DLD festival, and also to learn a lot. So this is one thing that we do as an embassy. It's a Ministry of Foreign Affairs initiative. It goes on in 20 different countries. One more thing that we are working on, but I don't know when it will actually happen, is to form sort of an Israeli ecosystem in Serbia. We're already negotiating with niche faculty of electrical engineering to bring Israeli companies to form a sort of closed ecosystem from the academy until the end product, to that the students can intern in those companies and they can develop their own ideas in a specialized incubator. So far, we have one company that is already participating and is already doing it before it was launched. But hopefully, it will happen eventually. It's hard to deal with the fact that a lot of Serbian officials are just leaving their job every few months.
Yeah.
Part of the problem.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, we had sort of very progress the negotiation, and then all of a sudden, the guy just disappeared.
Yeah, seems familiar. Can you tell me, from your perspective, when we're talking about innovation, what are Serbia's strengths and what are the weaknesses?
I think that in a lot of ways, Serbia and Serbians are very similar to Israelis. Serbians are also very improvising people,
Yeah.
and that is the that is very important for an entrepreneur, and I think that comes from the same reason that the same reason that we are improvising. The fact that that if you weren't improvising, you just didn't have any way to solve your problems in life. Another thing is that that Serbians are also, I think, innovative people and educated people, unlike neighboring countries. Sort of, I don't want to, you know, slash any other neighboring countries. But Serbians are very educated, and Serbians are very intellectual.